The Arizona Cardinals are looked at favorably by Pro Football Focus. What does it mean, if anything? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Go to the YouTube channel. Search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. Leave a like on the video. You know the drill. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. So, on the agenda today, I'm going to discuss mock drafts. Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kuiper, Pro Football Focus. They all have the Cardinals taking a different position group, and it's awesome. I'll talk about that in the final segment. Pro Football Focus ranked, just did power rankings for NFL rosters after the first, real hit of free agency. Where do the Cardinals stack up? I'll talk about that in the second segment. And first, really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I kind of wanted to do this segment because it puts even a little bit more clarity onto where the Cardinals were and how they are closer than what met the eye at the end of the 2024 season regarding roster building. And I know, disclaimer, that Pro Football Focus isn't the end-all be-all. You can find a stat to really back up pretty much any thought, obviously within reason. But like Pro Football, it's a good barometer check, I think. They do things that other people don't necessarily do. They make analytics easier to follow for dummies like me. While again, it's not the dictionary or lexicon of exactly what you should be looking at to determine the growth of an organization. It's just another kind of litmus test. You don't want to be on the bad lists, pretty much. But if you're on the good list, like the Cardinals are, it's a good thing. Cardinals defensive line was ranked in the top 5 of best position groups, most improved during the first, real wave of free agency. And that, to me, shows that regardless of how far back they look, no pass rush, no interior pressure, what we saw, whether it be from injury or production or otherwise last year, you add 2 guys and now you're cooking. And they got $60 million combined. Like, it's something that is cost effective, regardless of if Josh Sweat and or Dalvin Tomlinson aren't a top 5 pass rusher and interior defensive lineman respectively anymore, I guess. They don't need to be. They need to make the pass rush coupled with, Bijan Ojulari and Baron Browning and interior pressure, run stopping, coupled with Darius Robinson and whoever they draft. I'm assuming it's either going to be in the first or second round, that it's better exponentially than last year. And it's not going to be difficult for that to happen. The secondary carried the weight. We talked about this ad nauseum. The secondary carried the weight last year. And while the numbers don't show, like I saw some numbers about Cardinals completion percentage against was higher than I thought, but that doesn't mean, like, put it this way. The Cardinals secondary was the reason the Cardinals stayed in games more than the reason why they got blown out in games. And for a young secondary with zero semblance of a pass rush, whether it be in the interior or off the edge, you take it. And then you add these 2 guys and whatever else they'll do in free agency. I'm not sure what else can be done. There's not really a guy or 2 that they can bring in. I think that they're going to go through the draft now, especially because, Trey McBride's going to get a contract extension. Paris Johnson Jr. is going to be up. Garrett Williams is going to be up. Like, it's right around the corner. I discussed this a lot on this show since 2016. Like, 2 years from now, You're going to have a conversation about Chandler Jones. 2 years from now, you're going to have a conversation about Patrick Peterson. And they continue to run the organization like that was never going to happen. So they just spent willy-nilly and didn't save any money. It doesn't matter. What we're witnessing now is a much, much different, way to run an organization, way to build a roster, way to balance the salary cap. And just seeing the Cardinals on any list, a good one, is, it's taken us back to, 2020, going into 2021. Yeah. So doesn't suck. Hopefully this can change. Hopefully I can move the goalpost on this. But one of my old adages here, every day, as you'll know this, this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals. Thank you. Maybe make tomorrow your second one. Any step that's not a step backwards is a step forward. And there haven't been many steps backward since Monty Ossenfort took over. The Bilal Nichols, Justin Jones, they both got hurt, man. They didn't have a recent history of being injured. They didn't sign injury-laden players. Sean Murphy-Bunting probably got too much money. These are easy deals to get off of. They weren't competing anyway, so you give this is the year for everybody. And what Monty Ossenfort has done, when the spotlight is turned on, and this is where expectations, really present themselves. It was more future pacing 2022, and then 2023, 2023, Kyler Murray comes back. We'll see. Last year was like, okay, let's see what they've got with a roster that's still not complete. And then, you explode this year. That was always the plan. And what he's done since the end of last season was already exponentially improve the defense. Couple moves, couple re-signings, exponentially improve it. And that doesn't mean, again, that Dalvin Tomlinson and Josh Sweat are going to be all pro or that they are required to be. This front seven was so non-existent at times. Like, they had a weird, first month of the season where they were sack happy. Sack happy sounds like a hipster band name. Like playoff hacky sack. I don't know. And we're back. But really, during the large chunk of the season when it was absolutely necessary for the Cardinals to get some sort of pressure on a quarterback, more times than not, it was non-existent. So it's not difficult to level up the front with a guy who just came off winning a Super Bowl and a guy who's been an absolute game wrecker since being drafted by Minnesota 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it is. They're going to be better immediately. And then if you add an interior defensive lineman in the first 2 rounds, cool. If you add a pass rusher in the first 2 rounds, cool. Darius Robinson and Bijay Ojulari can be 75 or 80% of what people expect them to be. Cool. And all you got to do is add CJ Mosley to play off ball again, next to Mac Wilson, and you call it a day. What? Who said that? Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Cardinals defensive line, top 5 position group improvement by Pro Football Focus. While it doesn't mean anything really of weight, it's just nice to see the Cardinals on the list again. Pro Football Focus ranked all the NFL rosters, did a power ranking post the first week of free agency plus, and I'll discuss where the Cardinals lay. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. So imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. And getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. They've got this filter called Game Time Picks. The curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. It's not just sports, man. You're a stand-up comedy fan. You're a theater buff. You like to go to the concerts, whatever it is. They have the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. How's that? And the peace of mind that they'll bring in. is my favorite, the seat view element, where before buying tickets, you can click on the row of the row in the aisle of the venue, the section of the venue that you want to go watch an event at, and you can see a panoramic view of what your view will be like from the seats. It's an absolute game changer. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So, again, while this isn't like a massive deal, okay, and while it's pretty obvious that the Cardinals defense is going to be better this year than it was last year, at least on paper, and barring any sort of unforeseen injury and pre-draft, it's just nice to be included. Like these little things, it's like, oh man, I know that 2021 was a dumpster fire after like week 12, after their bye week. But at least being there was cool. Like selfishly, as somebody who's talked about this damn team for 15 years now, it's like 13 years. It's like, just give us something positive to talk about, man. That's not like, well, if all of these things happen and if Steve Keim gets fired and if Michael Bidwell sells the team, then the Cardinals have a chance to make the playoffs. Like we're so much closer to that than we were a handful of years ago, but sweet mother. It's nice to see one go through the hoop, even if it's a layup during a preseason warm-up routine. That's kind of what this is. But getting acknowledged for two players who signed with the same team, both of whom Pro Football Focus was high on. Yeah, it's cool. And so they did power rankings. So before I tell you what the number is, and if you've seen this already, obviously you already know, but if you were to guess where Pro Football Focus would rank the Cardinals after the first week of free agency, what number would you think they'd be ranked at? I'll give you about 10 seconds. Okay, I'll give you about 5 seconds. They're ranked 20th. And I think that's right. A lot of, when it's just power rankings, it's like, okay, well, the Cardinals don't have any redeeming qualities with how they ended last year and the year before and the year before that. So this is another great litmus test, a great barometer check, because it shows that the Cardinals don't deserve the respect yet. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think that that's something that is irrational. I don't think it's something that, national media is overlooking the Cardinals again. No, the Cardinals need to do something to earn the respect. Now, with that said, I mean, what they've done from the Steve Keim removal era to now is nothing short of exactly what you want an organization to do when they completely stick their heel in the ground and pivot to the road not taken towards functionality. But now they're at the dinner table and now they have to eat their meal. They have to cook their meal. That may be better where you actually have an action that, to present something. I don't know. You can figure it out. But 20th is right. They don't deserve the respect yet. And while they've done things in a very, very positive fashion, both Monty Osfort roster building to Jonathan Gannon, Nick Rallis, and Drew Petzing, and how they run this team with, their specific jobs. Jeff Rogers, now Justin Fry coming in, like the Cardinals are in a very, very good spot, not only to produce in 2025, but have sustained relevancy because of how these contracts are being signed, because of how short they are, because of how the money is front loaded, because of how the balance of everything seems to be in a very metronomed state. Very, very controlled. And obviously you can't control a lot of things, but what you can control is looking at what the NFC West is now, seeing the 49ers may be relegated because they want 53 guys to start on Sunday in week 1. We'll see what happens with Sam Darnold and the remade Cooper Kupp, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, Marquez Valdez-Scantling offense with a bad offensive line still. And the Rams, who look to be, even though I don't know if they're the favorite to win the NFC West right now, but, they've got the best coach in the division. They've got Puka. They got Devontae Adams. They always retool and regroup. They've got one of the best young defenses in football. But it's not something that, the Cardinals beat them last year. So it's not like, oh, this team's going to go 17-0. This is the perfect time. You're starting to see, I've been trying to say this for a couple shows, but I couldn't really figure out how to do it. Like that amazing feeling. This is going to be a human, like, interpersonal, like, moment for everybody watching right now, okay? How awesome is the moment when you're driving on the freeway and there's two cars in front of you that are going pretty slow. One goes in the right lane and one goes lane left of you, and you can just go straight. How amazing is that feeling? If things go to plan, that's what you're going to be experiencing with the Cardinals this year. 49ers, Seahawks move away. The Cardinals can go over and skyrocket up the ranks of the NFC West. It sucks that the Cardinals didn't get the last place schedule. It sucks. The 49ers have a cupcake schedule next year. The Cardinals have a very, very difficult schedule, which we'll unpack after the draft. I think it comes out in May. We can do a whole week on that. But being at 20 from Pro Football Focus, that's right. The Cardinals haven't done anything yet. They haven't done anything yet in a vacuum dictionary definition of what winning teams do, which is win more games than you lose. They haven't done that since 2021. So that's just what it is. And that's fine. It's not fine. Obviously, you'd like different things to happen. But when it comes to something like this, and it comes to the placement that they've made for themselves with Monty, on the, behind the wheel, when push comes to shove, if the Cardinals don't win more games this year than they did last year, everything is on the table. And by everything, I mean really one thing. And yeah, you just hope it doesn't get there. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. The mock draft battles are on, man. This is still silly season for mock drafts, okay? People's stock skyrockets and goes down. They haven't played a game since the end of the college football season. Some have gone to the combine, but it's like, I love this, where it's just like stocks. It's like, you have no idea why T-Mac from University of Arizona's stock is plummeting. It's like, because you ran a 4.55 or a 4.59 instead of a 4.53. It's like, with that said, it's still fascinating to see some of the most respected minds in the game, in the mock draft game, in the draft game, being so wildly different with who they choose the Cardinals to take at 16. I'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit that subscribe button, man, turn notifications on. We're going big this year. Year 9. It's unbelievable. Every day is better than the last hosting this podcast. So thank you for everybody who's made it great for me selfishly, for those that never agree with me, for those who agree with me the majority of the time, and for everybody in the middle. I just want my honest goal for this show is to be the biggest bleep possible. No, my biggest goal for this show is to give you the most honest and unique angles to situations that look normal. Because very rarely does a situation just have one angle, which is what the majority of people talk as. And, we can talk about that, but it's not clickbait. I believe everything that I say, every single thing. And I hope that I can deliver to make you feel a little bit more informed, maybe a little smarter, unless I say something dumb, which happens. And overall, thinking for yourself, as opposed to just, oh, well, this person said this. I agree with it. Like maybe there's more to it than that. And especially with the Arizona Cardinals, I don't have to be in the locker room to do that. So the mock draft battles are fascinating. Pro Football Focus, Trevor Sikkema's mock draft had the Cardinals taking Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan, who is wildly moving. Not wildly because it's not deserved, but he's shooting up. He is shooting up draft boards. Daniel Jeremiah has the Cardinals taking an interior offensive lineman, and Mel Kuiper has the Cardinals taking an edge rusher in their most recent drafts. So when you look at this, I still see the most glaring issue, unless they bring Will Hernandez back, and even so, drafting the best offensive lineman possible, whether it's a right tackle, a left guard, whatever it is, the best available, meaning a blue chipper at that position, not just the only one who's first on the board. Because even though they brought back Evan Brown for 2 years, and even though I hope that they re-sign Will, I don't understand why they wouldn't re-sign Will Hernandez. I know he's going to miss a little time. You've got Isaiah Adams, drafted him in the, I think, what was it, the 4th round last year, 5th round, 4th round, 4th round, 3rd round, 4th round. It was one of them. It was one of those clumps. 3rd round, because him and Tip Ryman both went in the same round. You can never have too much offensive line depth, in my opinion. Now, if you come at me with pass rusher or corner or interior defensive line, be like, yeah, they need all those too. Like, the true best player available pick would be Will Johnson. Because if you're going to look at it like, okay, obviously the Cardinals need pass rush help, you think. You obviously need interior defensive line help, you think. And corner, and, just the DB room in general is one of the stronger ones, as I discussed in the first segment. But if you have the chance to take the best corner or one of the top 2 corners in the draft, you just do it and you figure it out. If you have an outside CB1 to partner with Max Melton and you kind of fade away Sean Murphy-Bunting, they still got Elijah Jones. Great interview with Tyler Drake, Cardinals corner, Arizona sports guy. I'm going to have him on in the next week or so. One of my buds in this space had him on. Like, out of BC, the dude was great. They've got pieces, but if you can add potentially the best corner in the draft, you do it and you figure it out. You do it and you figure it out. The reason why this is fascinating to me, 2 reasons. One, the Cardinals definitely need help, obviously, in the interior defensive line, interior of the offensive line, and pass rush still. They need youth to grow, mature, and be on a cheap contract for, 5 years if they were to exercise the 5th-year option. Cheap labor, cheap employment. Especially for a pass rusher. I mean, they're going to be making $30 million or $25 million. Who knows what it's going to be in 5 years? So that's one. The Cardinals are going to have the pick of many different position groups that will bolster, this defense specifically or offensive line. That's one. Number 2, and I've mentioned this as kind of like a nuance to all this, a wrinkle to this entire process is, while the Cardinals still need interior defensive line and pass rush help and interior offensive line, at least they crammed it down to just a couple. 2 years ago, it was everything. Need everything. Everything, please. Can I go to Hometown Buffet and eat everything? That's what the Cardinals needed. Everything. You didn't know which way was up. You were in the middle of an avalanche. You couldn't see up. You had the bends in the middle of the ocean. You couldn't tell which way was up. And then now, although it's not ideal, and although this is kind of a sugar-coated way to look at a non-fulfilled, incomplete roster, you've got it down. You've pegged it down to 3 groups. And then sure, like you can add a wide receiver. Like I'm not worried at all about the wide receiver room. Because if I told you Trey McBride's a wide receiver, oh cool. So they've got one of the best 1-2 punches in football. It doesn't matter that Trey McBride's a tight end. He's a wide receiver. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They've got their wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is their wide receiver 2, especially in this offense. It doesn't matter. Truly, it doesn't matter. They brought back Zay. Michael Wilson's going to, this is the year. I don't know. I'm kind of in the minority here. I'm not really sure why. When Michael Wilson gets opportunities, he produces, and Greg Dortch is the quick twitch guy. I'm totally cool with them running it back when they have other glaring needs. But when you look at it, it's like, okay, 3 groups. And then for corner, if you want to do that and draft Will Johnson, if he's there, I think he's going to go in the top 10. Depends on what happens with the cornerback room, with the quarterback rooms. Like, is Jackson Dart going to go top 10, even though he shouldn't? Like, crazy things always happen. But all in all, this is what chipping away at a bad situation looks like. Being methodical, doing things slowly, not trying to force the issue. And the Cardinals are on the precipice after this draft. And, I'm sure they'll add a couple pieces in free agency before camp. They're on the precipice of having a very complete roster. And that's really all you want. And yeah, I'm sorry that it took a little bit longer than some people wanted. And I'm sorry that some people can't see past, Michael Biddle owns a team, they're never going to win. Guess what? Most teams never win. Most teams never win. How many starting quarterbacks who are actively playing have a Super Bowl ring? And don't count Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. Few. So what the Cardinals are doing, although methodical, maybe a little bit slower, but definitely methodical, they're on the precipice of something great. Or they're on the precipice of potentially looking for a different quarterback. I don't think that's going to be the case, but, anything's on the table. And that's why I'm so jacked up about 2025, man. It's going to be so fun to witness this in real time. This is a high wire act without a safety net. And they just got to get from one side to the other, make the playoffs. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. Remember, without you, there is no me tomorrow. Benefits of trading up. Benefits of sticking and picking. Benefits of trading back. The entire show will be centralized around that. I'll talk to you tomorrow.